Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me. Today we are discussing the Premier League games that have happened this weekend, Game Week 34. And of course, as always, we'll start at the top of the table where Man City destroyed Watford 5-1. Jesus getting 4 goals after certain rumours linking him to Arsenal. And I mean, it was expected that this would be a routine win for Man City, and it absolutely was. Like I said, 4 goals from Jesus. He scored within 5 minutes of the game starting, and from there was always only going to be one winner. And the fact that Man City scored all 5 goals so early on meant that they could rest the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, Laporte and Rodri. They could all come off. And also, Man City could rotate with players such as Fernandinho coming into the starting 11 and also playing Ruben Diaz. So that's a big boost for Man City. So they'll now just be focusing on the Real Madrid game, which is happening tonight. So that would be a very exciting game to watch. And like I said, the fact they could score so many goals early on meant that they could take off Kevin De Bruyne, Rodri and Laporte. As for Watford, I mean, it was to be expected, and the fact they scored, I guess, is good for them. And Kamara scoring shows that it just adds to his decent season that he's had for Watford, although he was at fault for the penalty that Watford did concede because he gave the ball away poorly. But I think Watford fans will forgive him somewhat given the quality of opposition he was facing and given that Kamara has performed well since he signed. And Kamara and Samir were both actually meant to have signed at the beginning of the season. And you do wonder, if they'd both been signed at the beginning of the season, perhaps Watford wouldn't be in such a perilous position as they are now, where they played Burnley at the weekend, and if they lose, they are all but mathematically relegated. Anyway, moving on from Man City, Liverpool, they were at home as well, and they won 2-0. And similar to Man City in the sense that they made changes in the 60th minute. Within 2 minutes, Liverpool scored to make it 1-0, and then from there they cruised. And it was good, actually, for them, from their point of view, to see the likes of Robertson and Origi score, unlike the other world-class 5 players, strikers that play for Liverpool. And also the fact that Firmino didn't even play shows Liverpool's amazing squad depth. But Liverpool relatively cruised through this game, given that they had 82% possession, according to SofaGoal, and then according to some other websites, I'm a tiny YouTuber, I haven't got any endorsements whatsoever, but other websites have mentioned that Liverpool actually had 85% possession, which is a Premier League record. So whichever way you look at it, Liverpool had over 80% possession, which is complete and utter dominance. Although Everton, they could have had a penalty in the second half through Gordon, 50-50 really, and arguably Mane should have been sent off in the first half. I mean, I personally think Mane should definitely be sent off in the first half. You can't just poke someone's eye, even if it was a weak poke. What matters is the intent, and the intent there was for Mane to just shove Holgate or poke Holgate in the face. You can't do that on a football pitch. And then in the second half, I think if a penalty was given, it probably wouldn't have been overturned. But for me, I don't think it was a clear and obvious penalty. It was one of those where it could be given, could not. And so many times you see in a football match where the attacker is running with the ball and they deliberately move in front of the defender to win a foul. And that was the case here. And you've got to ask yourself, would the referee have given that as a foul if it was anywhere on the pitch other than in Liverpool's penalty box? Probably. So in that sense, it could have been a penalty. I'm not saying it was obvious, but it could have been a penalty. But alas, Everton lose again. They lose away from home again, and they are now in the relegation zone after Burnley's win at Wolves. We'll come on to that in a second, but first of all, with Everton, because of their loss, they're in the relegation zone now, and I think the reality of Everton actually potentially going down is really starting to sink in now, given that they've played 32 games, they've only got 6 games left, and they're 2 points away from safety. Crazy stuff. I'm going to make a separate video on the relegation run-in, which I'm really looking forward to seeing how it plays out. I don't necessarily want Everton or Burnley to go down, but it's just so exciting that You've got the title race still going ahead, still potentially either Man City or Liverpool could win it. The top 4 race is still very much on, and also the relegation battle is still on. It's very exciting to see. But speaking of the top 4 race, you had Chelsea beating West Ham 1-0 at home. Chelsea were really poor. They were well off it. And if they play like that for the rest of the season, they'll struggle to make the top 4, actually, even though they're already on 65 points, because they were just so lethargic, so poor. And it is understandable to an extent, given that the biggest match of their season, Real Madrid, away from home, where they played so well and they lost narrowly 3-2. Well, they won 3-2, but they obviously lost the tie over 2 legs. They'll be so disappointed that they lost that game, but they need to pick themselves up to solidify a top 4 place. And also, of course, they've got the FA Cup final to come, and they'll be battered by Liverpool if they put in the same performance as they did against West Ham. But they managed to get the goal, and with West Ham, it's, they made a lot of changes for this game, and that's completely understandable. And I think the decision was justified, given West Ham have so many injuries, and they've got such a massive, massive game on Thursday at the London Stadium against Frankfurt in the Europa League semi-final. So I think Moyes made the right decision to make all those changes. And Dawson, it's a shame really, because Dawson actually has had a really good season, and he was so good in this game, made so many blocks, and I think he would have been man of the match if it stayed at 0-0, but it was just a poor moment from him, and it was a really soft foul, but the intent was there from Dawson to try and drag back Lukaku, and he should have just pulled his hands away. So it was a very poor moment from Dawson in what was otherwise a really good game from him. So that's a shame from West Ham's point of view, but they'll just ignore that now and put all their attention and focus onto Thursday, and that should be a really, really exciting game for West Ham fans. Then we have Arsenal 3, Man United 1, and it was a really good game. Arsenal creating an XG of 2.36 and Man United creating an XG of 2.37 according to Infogol. So lots of chances created, really exciting game. Arsenal obviously scoring very early on through Tavares, and then Saka penalty. I think it was the right decision because Eddie Nketiah was technically offside, but the foul happened first, so I think the officials got that one right. And then obviously Saka scored the penalty. And then also with the Man United goal, I do think it was a handball because I don't know what the Arsenal player's hand is doing all the way up there. I mean, it was definitely in an unnatural position. And Bruno Fernandes, poor penalty. And I know he's a penalty expert, similar to Jorginho actually in the Chelsea game, but I just don't understand why Ronaldo just doesn't take it, because Ronaldo is obviously so reliable and such a phenomenal goal scorer. Just give it to Ronaldo. But alas, Fernandes took the penalty, missed, and then it wasn't meant to be for Man United. Arsenal performed very well, and even though they've been very up and down, losing to the likes of Palace, Brighton, Southampton, and then beating Chelsea and Man United, Arsenal performed really well. And it's shout out to El Nene, by the way, just coming in straight into the team and to play in midfield away from home against Chelsea and then Man United, considering he's fasting for Ramadan, is phenomenal effort from him. And also, from Arsenal's point of view again, the fact that Tomiyasu is come back from injury is a massive upgrade for them and a big boost. So it definitely puts Arsenal in a very strong position for top 4, given that obviously they beat Man United and Spurs dropped 2 points away from home against Brentford. A really poor game, really. Not too many chances created. Brentford, though, the better team, they created an XG of 1.62, which is one more than Spurs. But nevertheless, it was a very poor game. And from Spurs' point of view, it definitely is 2 points dropped, given the amount of money Spurs have spent on their squad in the last few years, and given that Brentford, although they have excellent recruitment and they do have great players in Ivan Toney and Eriksen, Brentford are a newly promoted team, and you would have expected Spurs to win. But they still kept a clean sheet. Pontus Jansson and Ivan Toney had 2 massive chances in the second half, but Spurs were resolute defensively, kept a clean sheet, and they'll just have to move on to their next game, to be fair. Then we have Burnley 1, Wolves 0. A massive, massive win for Burnley, which takes them out the relegation zone and just spices up the relegation battle. And it's brilliant from them. But first of all, I'll talk about Wolves quickly. and it's another defeat for Wolves against Burnley. Wolves have 1 win in 11 against Burnley. Just completely Burnleyed. And to be fair, once Burnley took the lead, Wolves just didn't create many, if any, chances at all, really. Wolves' best play was in the first half through the likes of Johnny Otti and Jimenez. But Burnley nullified Wolves. And for Wolves, it means that they stay 8th. But if anything now, it's looking like they could potentially slip even further down, given that Leicester have 2 games. No, Leicester have 1 game in hand over Wolves, and Wolves' trajectory is slipping down somewhat. But Burnley, to be fair, nullified Wolves completely, and Burnley did deserve to win. And Burnley have now taken 10 points out of their last 15, so they've been brilliant since, obviously, that game, Sean Dyche was manager, but since Dyche has been sacked, Burnley took a point away against West Ham and then had back-to-back home wins against Southampton and Wolves. And it seems like Burnley have just been allowed to express themselves more and have more creativity in their team, playing the likes of Roberts at right-back, who is a more attacking-minded full-back than Lowton, and then also playing McNeil on the wing, who seems to have been given more freedom to keep the ball, drive Burnley up the pitch, and then have some more shots at goal. And to be fair, that was evidence against Wolves, given that he had 2 really good chances in the first half. So it seems like Burnley have been given more freedom to keep the ball for longer, rather than just hit balls down the channel and then get crosses into the box. It seems like Burnley actually varying their play and scoring different types of goals, because Roberts' goal against Southampton was a lovely finish from him, and then Vidra, really nice passing move from Burnley, Weghorst just cutting it to Vidra, and then a great finish from him. So it's good to see from a Burnley perspective that they're varying up their play and actually playing really decent football. And they've got the upward trajectory and the momentum now, and it's going to be difficult for Everton to stay up. Like I said before, I'm going to do a video analysing the relegation run-in, because it's just really fun and exciting to talk about from a neutral point of view. Obviously, from a Burnley, Leeds and Everton point of view, it's terrifying and so nerve-wracking, but this Burnley win and their recent performances have absolutely spiced up the relegation battle. Next, we have a team who are in the relegation zone but will almost certainly be relegated, and that's Norwich losing 3-0 at home to Newcastle. I mean, Newcastle have been absolutely phenomenal. So since their embarrassing defeat at home against Cambridge in the FA Cup, they've played 15 games in the Premier League and they've won 10 and only lost 3. So that's a phenomenal record from Newcastle. And Joel Linton, he epitomises Newcastle's rise in the table and in form, given that they just decided to play him up front and he scored 2 really good goals, especially the first one. Phenomenal finish from him. And it just seems like such a long time ago now, when Newcastle were at home to Watford and João Pedro scored in the 87th minute. I mean, at that point, a lot of people were thinking, well, Newcastle, that's 2 points dropped, could be a really decisive fixture, a result that we look back on come the end of the season. But no, Newcastle are just flying up the table and are now 9th. And they're only 6 points away from Wolves. And it would be a phenomenal finish to the season for Newcastle if they finish in the top half of the table. Brilliant effort from them. Eddie Howe's done a fantastic job, and it's not like, yes, okay, they spent money on the likes of Trippier and Bruno and Burn and Target, but it's still largely a squad made up of players from the Championship, and Eddie Howe's ability to improve the players in such a short amount of time is a massive credit to him. I think the likes of Murphy, Fraser, and even the likes of Shah and Dubravka, you could argue, and Manquillo have all improved since Eddie Howe's come into the team, and no one epitomises that more than Joel Linton. As for Norwich, though, a really, really bad defeat from them. They did create some good chances and arguably deserved a goal, but it's going to be a massive rebuilding job next season in the Championship for them. Then we have Leicester 0, Villa 0, just a really poor and scrappy game, but I think both teams will be happy with clean sheets, given that Villa have struggled against the teams in the top half of the table this season, and Leicester have been so shocking defensively, especially from set pieces. And to be fair, for most of the season, it seemed like Leicester have been playing players out of position, especially in defence. But they had a relatively settled back four in Justin James, Soyuncu, Fofana and Castagna. So it's a much more settled back four than previous defensives they've had this season. So better from both teams, but just a really poor game. Then we have Brighton 2, Southampton 2. And I guess it was fitting that it ended in a draw, given that both teams, generally speaking, have finished very close between one another. Since Brighton have been promoted in the 17-18 season, both teams have finished in the bottom six, with the exception of Southampton in the 2019-2020 season, where they finished 11th. And that's according to The Athletic, who are obviously very good publication and organisation. So, like I said, it shows that both teams are quite similar in terms of their progression, but a very entertaining game and amazing goals. I mean, Brighton's second goal, the Salisu own goal, was a phenomenal build-up from them. And then James Ward-Prowse, what a player. His second goal was phenomenal. Great build-up from Southampton with Teller and Romeo, and the Romeo back heel to Ward-Prowse. Phenomenal finish from James. And for me personally, as an England fan, I would take him on the plane, not just because of his form, but his ability at set pieces is phenomenal. It's a fantastic weapon for England, and yeah, I think a draw was a fair result. Another side note with this game, though, horrible injury for Livramento. I hope he comes back from his injury soon, because it didn't look good. And to be fair, he has tailed off somewhat in the second half of the season, but he started the season so well, and given his age, he's got a lot of potential. So hopefully he can come back from injury soon, and this injury doesn't affect him long term in his career. The final game to talk about, Palace 0, Leeds 0. Definitely a better point for Leeds than it is for Palace. Palace created the better chances, Zaha with 2 quick-fire chances in the second half. But in the end, a draw, I would say, is a fair result, given that Leeds defended quite resolutely and earned that point for me. I think most Leeds fans... excuse me, judging by the discourse and what people are saying online, I think Leeds fans, while they're maybe frustrated and nervous and anxious about the fixtures to come, they'll be happy that they drew this game rather than dropping a point. And they'll see it as 1 point picked up rather than 2 points dropped. But Leeds, improving defensively just the right time. In their last 5 games, they've only conceded 4 goals and they have back-to-back clean sheets. So that's massive from their point of view. And, well, that kind of defensive solidity is going to be needed against the likes of Man City, Arsenal and Chelsea. Although, having said that, from a Man City's point of view, and even a Chelsea's point of view, they'll look at that Leeds game thinking that's going to be really hard going to Ellen Road with the atmosphere they have, and given that Leeds have got a lot to play for, I wouldn't be surprised if they picked up a point against Chelsea, or maybe even 3 against Arsenal or Chelsea. Maybe they draw one of those games, maybe win one of those games, I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if Leeds picked up 1 or 2 points within those 3 games. But Leeds, of course, they're right in the relegation battle, and again, like I've said previously, I'm going to make a video on the relegation run-in because it looks actually very spicy, and it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out from now until the end of the season. But again, thank you for your patience. If you have watched this video, please like, comment and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.